The year was 2847, and humanity had spread far beyond Earth. They had built colonies on distant worlds, created new homes among the stars, and believed they had finally found peace. The colony world of New Eden was their proudest achievement. 12 million people lived there, building farms, raising families, and dreaming of a bright future. Commander Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of his ship, the carrier Relentless. He was a tall man with tired eyes and steady hands. He had served in the Navy for 20 years, but most of his duty had been peaceful patrols and escort missions. War seemed like something from old history books. Lieutenant Amy Brooks sat at her station, monitoring communications. She was young, barely 25, with short brown hair and a quick smile. Today, that smile disappeared when her screen lit up with emergency signals. "Commander," she said, her voice shaking, "we are receiving a distress call from New Eden. They say they are under attack." Nathan felt his blood turn cold. "Show me." The main screen flickered to life, and Nathan saw something that would haunt him forever. Alien ships filled the sky above New Eden. They were dark and angular, like weapons made into spacecraft. And they were firing. Plasma beams rained down on the colony. Cities burned. Forests turned to ash. The beautiful blue lakes boiled away into steam. And the people, 12 million innocent souls, ran and screamed and died. "Who are they?" Nathan demanded. "The Vorath Dominion," Amy answered, pulling up information. "They control 37 star systems. They have never contacted us before. Why are they attacking? Did we do something to them?" Amy shook her head, tears running down her face. There was no warning, no demands, no communication at all. They just started killing. Nathan ordered his ship to maximum speed, but he knew the truth. New Eden was 3 days away. By the time they arrived, there would be nothing left to save. The Vorath attack lasted exactly 6 hours. They were thorough and methodical. Their commanders had done this many times before to other species. They targeted hospitals first because wounded people needed resources. They targeted schools next because children represented the future. Then they moved through residential areas, burning everything. On their communication channels, the Vorath soldiers laughed and made jokes. They called it a cleansing. They said the humans screamed in funny ways. One commander broadcast a message to his fleet saying that this was excellent practice for their new weapons. When Nathan finally arrived with the relief fleet, New Eden was silent. Smoke rose from 1,000 fires. The beautiful cities were now graveyards of melted metal and broken stone. Admiral Patricia Lane led the ground survey team. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had seen combat before, but nothing like this. Nothing could have prepared anyone for this. Captain Daniel Hughes walked beside her through the ruins of the capital city. Every few steps, they found bodies. Families huddled together. Children clutching toys. Old people who had tried to protect the young. All of them burned beyond recognition. "The preliminary count is devastating," Daniel said, reading from his tablet. His hands were shaking. "Out of 12 million colonists, we have found fewer than 40,000 survivors. They hid in underground bunkers and mining tunnels." Patricia stopped walking. She had found something in the rubble. It was a small metal plate, hastily scratched with a name. Someone had made a grave marker for a child named Lily Morrison. She had been 6 years old. "They did this for entertainment," Patricia said quietly. Intelligence intercepted their communications. "They were laughing, Daniel. They murdered 12 million people, and they laughed." Daniel clenched his fists. "What are we going to do?" Patricia carefully picked up the small grave marker and held it close. "We are going to make them understand what they have done. We are going to show them that humanity does not forget. Back on the Relentless, Nathan received hundreds of messages from Earth. The news had spread across all human worlds. People were crying in the streets. Families were desperately searching for any word of their loved ones on New Eden. The death toll was so massive that it was hard to comprehend. The global parliament of Earth held an emergency session. Leaders from every nation watched the footage from New Eden. Some wept openly. Others sat in stunned silence. A few demanded immediate retaliation, but humanity had no weapons that could threaten the Varth. Their technology was centuries ahead. President Margaret Collins addressed the assembly. She was an older woman known for her calm diplomacy, but today her voice was hard as iron. The Varth Dominion has committed an act of genocide against our people, she said. They gave no warning. They made no demands. They simply decided that 12 million human lives meant nothing. They were wrong. She paused, looking at every face in the chamber. We cannot strike back today. We do not have the power, but we will find that power. We will build it. We will prepare. And when we are ready, we will show the Varth that humanity has a long memory. We never forget our dead. We never forgive those who murder our children. The assembly voted unanimously to authorize military expansion. Every resource would be dedicated to building a fleet capable of challenging the Varth. Every scientist would work on new weapons and new technologies. Every citizen would contribute. On New Eden, the survivors were evacuated to temporary shelters on nearby worlds. They carried nothing but their grief and their memories. Many had lost everyone they loved. Parents without children. Children without parents. Lovers separated forever. A young woman named Rachel Santos sat in a refugee camp staring at nothing. Her entire family was gone. Her mother, her father, her little brother who had just turned 10. She had survived only because she was visiting the mining tunnels that day for a school project. Counselor approached her gently. Is there anything you need? Rachel looked up with empty eyes. I need them to pay for what they did. The counselor nodded sadly. Many people feel that way. No, Rachel said. You do not understand. I am going to join the military. I am going to train and learn and wait. And someday, I am going to make them remember the name of every person they killed. Starting with my brother. His name was Carlos. He was 10 years old. He wanted to be a pilot. She stood up and walked toward the recruitment office. Across human space, thousands of others made the same choice. The Varth had wanted to break humanity with terror. Instead, they had given humans something far more dangerous than fear. They had given them a reason to fight. 5 years passed after the burning of New Eden. To most species in the galaxy, 5 years was nothing. To the Varth Dominion, the attack was already a fading memory. They had destroyed countless primitive civilizations in their long history. The humans were just another name on a very long list. The Varth believed that fear would keep humanity quiet. They expected the survivors to hide in their home system, too terrified to ever challenge their superiors. They did not bother to watch what the humans were doing. That was their greatest mistake. On Earth, everything had changed. The old arguments between nations had disappeared. The petty conflicts over resources and territory no longer mattered. Humanity had found something that united them completely, a shared wound that demanded justice. The global parliament created Project Reckoning in secret. Every major nation contributed its best scientists and engineers. Every corporation donated technology and materials. Every military branch shared its knowledge and personnel. For the first time in human history, the entire species worked together toward a single goal. Dr. Samuel Porter led the research team at the Geneva complex. He was a thin man with glasses and messy gray hair. Before New Eden, he had been a theoretical physicist studying space travel. Now he worked 18 hours a day, driven by something stronger than scientific curiosity. His daughter had been a teacher on New Eden. She had died trying to protect her students from the bombardment. Samuel stood before the military council, pointing at complex equations on a screen. His eyes were sunken from lack of sleep, but his voice was steady and clear. "We have achieved a breakthrough," he announced. "The dimensional fold drive works. We can move ships instantly across vast distances. The Varth will never see us coming." General Catherine Webb listened carefully. She was the supreme commander of Earth's combined military forces. She had short silver hair and a scar across her left cheek from an old training accident. Her son had been stationed on New Eden as a young officer. His body was never found. "How soon can we build a fleet?" she asked. 2 years for full production. Maybe 18 months if we convert all civilian shipyards to military construction. Catherine nodded without hesitation. "Do it. Every shipyard. Every factory. Everything we have." The work began immediately. In hidden bases throughout the solar system, humanity built its response to the massacre. The new warships were unlike anything humans had created before. They were fast and deadly, equipped with weapons that combined human engineering with technology captured from Varth probes. The shipbuilders made a special decision about names. Every vessel would carry the name of someone who died on New Eden. Destroyers were named after children. Cruisers were named after families. The great dreadnoughts were named after the communities that had been erased. The flagship of the fleet was the largest warship ever built by human hands. They named it after a 6-year-old girl whose grave marker Admiral Patricia Lane had found in the ruins. They called it the Lily Morrison. While the fleet was being constructed, humanity also built an intelligence network. The Varth were careless because they did not consider humans a real threat. That carelessness allowed human agents to infiltrate their space. Agent Lisa Grant spent 2 years undercover on a Varth trading station. She was a small woman with forgettable features, which made her perfect for spy work. She worked as a cleaning servant, a job the Varth considered beneath their attention. This allowed her to go anywhere and hear everything. The Varth talked openly about their conquests. They joked about the burning of New Eden. One officer kept a trophy from the attack, a human child's toy that he had taken from the ashes. Lisa saw it on his desk every day. She memorized his face and added his name to her list. She documented patrol routes, defensive systems, and fleet movements. She identified every officer who had participated in the New Eden attack. She learned the locations of their shipyards, their supply lines, and their homeworld defenses. When she finally returned to Earth, she delivered enough intelligence to fill 100 databases. Director Marcus Young reviewed her reports with growing satisfaction. He was an older man who ran the intelligence division. He had lost his brother on New Eden. "They truly believe we are not a threat," Lisa told him. "They think we are too primitive and too emotional to fight back. They expect us to accept our place beneath them." Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Good. Let them keep believing that." The training programs were just as intense as the construction efforts. Young men and women who had lost family on New Eden volunteered by the thousands. Rachel Santos, the girl who had lost her parents and brother, became one of the top pilots in the fleet. She flew with a photograph of her brother Carlos taped to her instrument panel. Commander Nathan Cole was promoted to admiral and given command of the entire fleet. He had changed in the 5 years since New Eden. The tired but optimistic officer was gone. In his place was a man of cold determination. He trained constantly, studied every piece of intelligence, and memorized the name of every Varth commander on the target list. His second in command was Captain Daniel Hughes, who had walked through the ruins with Admiral Lane. Daniel had volunteered for the most dangerous missions during the preparation years. He said he wanted to be useful. Everyone knew he was trying to work through his grief. Admiral Patricia Lane, now elderly, gave a final briefing to the fleet commanders before they departed. "Remember why we are doing this," she said. "We are not attacking for conquest. We are not destroying for pleasure. We are delivering justice for 12 million people who deserve to live. Be precise. Be thorough. And when it is done, come home." She looked at each commander in turn. The Vorath believed that strength means the ability to destroy without consequence. "We are going to teach them that true strength includes the ability to remember and the patience to wait." The fleet gathered at a hidden staging point beyond the outer planets. 300 warships, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. They carried weapons of terrible power and crews filled with cold determination. Admiral Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the Lily Morrison and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vorath were going about their normal lives, completely unaware of what was coming. "All ships report ready," his communications officer announced. Nathan thought of the footage he had watched 5 years ago. The burning cities, the laughing soldiers, the children who never had a chance. "Begin the jump sequence," he ordered. It is time they learned what it means to wound humanity. The full drives activated, and 300 ships vanished into the darkness between stars. The Vorath High Command received the first warning signs 3 weeks before the main attack. 3 border monitoring stations went silent on the same night. No distress calls. No explanations. They simply stopped transmitting. Supreme Commander Krau dismissed the reports with a wave of his massive hand. He was an old warrior, covered in medals from 100 conquests. He had personally ordered the attack on New Eden and considered it one of his minor achievements. "Technical failures," he said. "Send maintenance crews to investigate." The maintenance crews disappeared without a trace. Over the following weeks, the pattern spread like a disease. Outposts on the edge of Vorath space went dark. Scout ships sent to investigate never returned. Communication relays stopped working one by one. It was as if something was hunting in the shadows, picking off isolated targets and leaving no witnesses. The Vorath military grew concerned, but Supreme Commander Krau refused to panic. The Vorath had ruled this region of space for thousands of years. No species had ever successfully challenged their dominance. Whatever was happening had to be some natural phenomenon or internal problem. He was still believing. This when 300 human warships appeared directly above his home world. The fold drives deposited the human fleet in perfect formation. Weapons already powered and targeting systems active. The Vorath defense satellites detected the intrusion, but by the time they sent their alerts, human weapons were already firing. Admiral Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the Lily Morrison, watching the chaos unfold below. Vorath Prime was a massive world, covered in dark cities and industrial complexes. Millions of enemy soldiers and countless weapons platforms defended it. On any normal day, it would be impossible to attack, but this was not a normal day. The humans had spent 5 years preparing for exactly this moment. "Open a channel to all Vorath frequencies," Nathan ordered. His communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Nathan spoke clearly. His voice broadcast to every receiver on the planet and every ship in the system. "This is Admiral Nathan Cole of the United Earth Navy. 7 years ago, your forces attacked our colony world of New Eden. You killed 12 million innocent people. They were civilians, families, children. They posed no threat to you. Your soldiers laughed while they burned." He paused, letting his words sink into the shocked silence of the Vorath command structure. "We are not here to negotiate. We are not here to accept your surrender. We are here to demonstrate what happens when you wound humanity. We remember. We always remember." The Vorath defense fleet scrambled to respond. They had 400 warships in orbit, more than enough to crush any normal attack. But human weapons were not normal. The fold drives allowed impossible tactical movements. Human ships appeared and disappeared, striking from unexpected angles, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted effectively. Captain Maria Santos commanded the destroyer Swift Justice. Her brother had been a doctor on New Eden, running toward the hospitals when the bombardment began. Maria had spent 5 years imagining this moment. Targeting their command center, she reported to the fleet. Firing main batteries. The Vorath military headquarters was a massive tower in the center of their largest city. It had stood for 3,000 years, a symbol of their invincible power. Human plasma cannons hit it with precision strikes, taking out communication arrays and defense systems without damaging the surrounding civilian buildings. The tower crumbled. Supreme Commander Krall died in the collapse, never understanding what had happened to his empire. But Admiral Cole had given strict orders about targeting. Every officer in the fleet knew the rules. Military installations were legitimate targets. Ships were legitimate targets. The commanders on the New Eden kill list were targets. But civilian areas were protected. Admiral, reported the Lieutenant Commander Kevin Park from the tactical station, we have clear shots at their population centers. We could end this species today. Nathan shook his head. Negative. We hit military targets only. No schools. No hospitals. No homes. Sir, they showed no such mercy to our people. That is exactly why we must. We are not them. If we become what they were, then New Eden means nothing. We would just be another empire of killers. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships systematically destroyed every Vorath military asset in the system. Shipyards were reduced to molten debris. Defense platforms were torn apart. The proud Vorath fleet, which had never lost a major engagement in living memory, was scattered and broken. Rachel Santos flew her fighter through the chaos, her hand steady on the controls. She had waited 7 years for this moment, dreaming of revenge for her family. But as she watched a Vorath cruiser break apart, she did not feel the satisfaction she expected. Carlos, she whispered, touching the photograph of her brother. I hope this is enough. I hope you can rest now. On the surface of Vorath Prime, millions of citizens cowered in their homes, waiting for the extermination. They had watched their own military do this to countless species. They knew how conquests ended. The humans would burn their cities, slaughter their children, and erase their civilization from history. The burning never came. Instead, human ships took up positions in orbit, their weapons pointed at military targets but holding fire. The attack had achieved its objectives. The Vorath military was destroyed. The commanders responsible for New Eden were dead. And now, impossibly, the human fleet was just waiting. Admiral Cole broadcast a final message to the planet below. Citizens of Vorath Prime, your military attacked our people without warning and without reason. They killed 12 million innocents and laughed while doing it. We have now destroyed your ability to threaten us again. But we have not touched your families. We have not burned your homes. We have not murdered your children. He looked at the planet, thinking of another world that had once been beautiful and full of life. We want you to understand why. Your leaders believed that strength meant the power to destroy without consequence. They were wrong. True strength is having the power to destroy and choosing not to use it. True strength is remembering a wound without becoming the monster that inflicted it. The channel remained open, carrying his words to every corner of the enemy world. The human fleet will withdraw. We will leave you in peace. But remember this day. Remember that we could have done to you what you did to us. Remember that we chose mercy when you chose murder. And remember that if you ever attack human worlds again, we will return. Next time, we may not be so generous." The full drives engaged, and 300 human ships vanished as quickly as they had appeared. Behind them, they left a broken empire and a lesson that would echo through generations. The Vorath had learned what it meant to wound humanity. They would never forget. The Vorath Dominion fell into chaos after the human attack. Their supreme commander was dead. Their ruling council had been destroyed when the military headquarters collapsed. Their fleet was scattered debris drifting through space. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Vorath had no clear leadership. Different factions fought for control. Some wanted immediate revenge against humanity, but they had no ships and no weapons. Others wanted to surrender completely, hoping for mercy. A third group simply wanted to hide and hoped the humans would forget about them. Elder Tarn emerged as the voice of reason. He was one of the oldest living Vorath, a scholar rather than a warrior. He had opposed the attack on New Eden from the beginning, arguing that murdering civilians served no strategic purpose. Supreme Commander Krau had ignored him. Now Krau was dead, and Tarn was one of the few senior leaders still alive. "We must face the truth," Tarn told the surviving council members. "We attacked a species we knew nothing about. We assumed they were weak because they were emotional. We assumed they would break because other species had broken. We were catastrophically wrong. What do you suggest?" asked another elder, her voice bitter with defeat. "We must negotiate. We must accept whatever terms the humans offer. And we must learn from this disaster, or we will not survive as a species." 3 months after the attack, a single human ship arrived in Vorath space. It carried Ambassador Helen Price and her diplomatic team. Helen was a small woman with gray hair and gentle eyes. She looked like someone's grandmother, which made the Vorath underestimate her. They should not have. Helen had lost her husband and 2 sons on New Eden. Her youngest boy had been 20 years old, just starting his career as an engineer. Her oldest had been 24, newly married with a baby on the way. Her husband had died trying to save their neighbors. Helen had spent 7 years learning everything about the Vorath. Their language, their customs, their history, their psychology. She knew them better than most Vorath knew themselves. The surviving Vorath leaders gathered in a temporary meeting hall to hear the human terms. They expected harsh demands. They expected humiliation. Some expected execution. Helen stood before them, a small figure surrounded by towering aliens who could have crushed her with one hand. She showed no fear. She had already lost everything that mattered to her. There was nothing left to be afraid of. "Thank you for meeting with me," she began, her voice calm and clear. "I know you expected destruction. I know your history is filled with examples of conquered species being exterminated. You assumed we would do the same." She activated a holographic display. Images of New Eden appeared, showing the devastation. The burning cities, the mass graves, the handful of traumatized survivors. 12 million people lived on New Eden. They were farmers, teachers, doctors, children. They had done nothing to threaten you. They did not even know your species existed. And your military killed them for practice, for entertainment, for laughs. Several Vorath looked away, unable to meet her gaze. "Your emotions make you weak," Supreme Commander Krau had once said. Helen remembered that quote from the intelligence files. "Your leaders believed that our emotions made us inferior," she continued. "They thought our love for family was a disadvantage. They thought our grief would paralyze us. They thought our anger would make us reckless and easy to defeat. They were wrong about everything." She stepped closer to the assembled elders. "Our emotions are our greatest strength. Our love drives us to protect our families with everything we have. Our grief gives us long memories that refuse to forget injustice. Our anger gives us the determination to hold aggressors accountable, no matter how long it takes. You could have destroyed us, Elder Tarn said quietly. Your fleet had the power to burn our cities as we burned yours. Why did you not do it? Helen was silent for a moment, considering her answer. Because we are not you, she said finally. We could have murdered your children to avenge ours. We could have made your families watch their homes burn. We could have made your families, which have made your families, watch their homes burn. We could have given your species the same horror you gave us. But that would have made us monsters. And monsters cannot build the future we want. She pulled up a document on the display. These are our terms. They are not negotiable. First, you will withdraw all military assets from every system within 100 light years of human space. Second, you will pay reparations to the survivors of New Eden. Every survivor will receive enough to rebuild their lives. Third, you will teach your children what happened here. The truth, not propaganda. They must understand why the Dominion fell and what arrogance cost your people. And if we refuse, asked one of the military survivors, his voice hostile. Helen turned to look at him directly. Then we will return. And next time, we will not stop at military targets. We do not want to become what you were. But if you force us to choose between our survival and our mercy, we will choose survival every time. The room was silent. Your species is ancient, Helen continued. You have existed for 100,000 years. You have conquered dozens of civilizations. You believed you were invincible. She smiled sadly. Humanity is older. We have existed for 300,000 years. We survived ice ages that covered our world. We survived plagues that killed half our population. We survived wars where we nearly destroyed ourselves. We are very good at surviving. And we never, ever forget. Elder Tarn stood slowly, his whole body creaking with the effort. We accept your terms, he said. All of them. Tarn, you cannot speak for the entire Dominion, protested another elder. I can and I will, Tarn replied firmly. Look at what our arrogance has brought us. Our fleet is gone. Our leaders are dead. Our reputation is destroyed. The humans showed us mercy we did not deserve. We will accept their terms, and we will be grateful they allowed us to survive at all. Helen nodded. The treaty will be signed tomorrow. After that, our ships will withdraw from your space. But remember what I said. We never forget. If future generations of Vareth decide to test our patience again, the result will be the same. Only worse. As she turned to leave, one young Vareth spoke up. He had been silent throughout the meeting, just watching and listening. Ambassador Price, he said hesitantly, I read about your family. Your sons, your husband. How can you stand here and offer us peace after what we took from you? Helen stopped but did not turn around. Because peace is not about forgetting, she said quietly. Peace is about choosing not to let hatred consume you. I will grieve my family until the day I die. I will never forgive what was done to them. But I can still choose to build something better than revenge. She finally turned to look at the young Vareth. That choice is what makes us human. I hope someday your species learns to make it too. She walked out without another word, leaving the Vareth to contemplate what they had learned about the species they had tried to destroy. 20 years had passed since the signing of the New Eden Reconciliation Treaty. The galaxy looked very different from the dark days of the massacre and the war that followed. New Eden itself had been reborn. Where ashes and ruins once covered the land, new cities now reached toward the sky. 30 million humans called it home, their communities built on the foundations of the old. Gardens grew where bombs had fallen. Children played in parks named after those who had died. The Vareth Dominion had changed as well. Elder Tarn had led his people through the most difficult transformation in their history. The warrior culture that had defined them for thousands of years was slowly giving way to something different. Not weaker, but wiser. They had learned that strength without restraint was not strength at all. It was just cruelty. Ambassador Helen Price returned to New Eden for the 20th anniversary memorial. She was elderly now, her hair completely white, her movements slower than before. But her mind remained sharp, and her presence still commanded respect from humans, and Vorath-alike. Admiral Nathan Cole walked beside her through the memorial gardens. He had retired from the Navy 10 years ago, finally allowing himself to rest after decades of service. His hair was white, his face lined with age, but his eyes still held the quiet intensity that had made him such an effective commander. "I never thought I would see this," Nathan admitted, looking around at the peaceful scene. Vorath children playing with human children, their parents talking like old friends. It seemed impossible 20 years ago. "Nothing is impossible," Helen replied. "It just takes time, and patience, and the willingness to believe that people can change." They stopped at the central monument, a massive wall of polished black stone. 12 million names were carved into its surface, one for every person who had died in the original attack. The names were too small to read individually, but together they formed a pattern that covered the entire wall like stars in the night sky. Nathan found the name he always looked for: Lily Morrison, age 6. The girl whose grave marker Admiral Patricia Lane had found in the ruins. The girl whose name had been given to humanity's greatest warship. "The Lily Morrison was decommissioned last year," Nathan said quietly. "They turned it into a museum. School children visit it to learn about the war." "That is as it should be," Helen replied. "Weapons should become lessons. That is how civilizations grow." A group of visitors approached the wall. Among them was a Vorath elder, his gray skin wrinkled with age. He moved slowly, supported by younger members of his family. When he reached the wall, he knelt with difficulty and placed a small offering at its base. The humans around him made space but showed no hostility. This was a common sight now. Vorath visitors came to the memorial regularly, paying respects to the victims of their ancestors' crime. Dr. Samuel Porter, creator of the fold drive that had made victory possible, had died 5 years earlier. He had lived just long enough to see the first Vorath delegation visit New Eden in peace. His last words had been recorded and were now part of the memorial's permanent display. "We did not build weapons of revenge," he had said. "We built tools of justice." There is a difference, and it matters. In schools across human space, teachers told the story of New Eden to each new generation. They explained the horror of the attack and the long years of preparation. They described the decisive battle and the choice to show mercy. They emphasized that humanity's true victory was not the destruction of the Vorath fleet, but the peace that followed. A young girl raised her hand during one such lesson. She was about the age Lily Morrison had been when she died. "Teacher," she asked, "why did we not just destroy them completely? They killed our people first. Would that not have been fair?" The teacher, a woman named Grace Howard, knelt to meet the girl's eyes. Grace's grandmother had been one of the 40,000 survivors of the original attack. "Fair is a complicated word," Grace said gently. "What the Vorath did was terrible. They killed millions of innocent people for no reason. Our ancestors were angry, and their anger was justified." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "But revenge without limits would have made us the same as them. We would have become murderers of children, destroyers of families. The dead of New Eden did not want us to become monsters in their name. They wanted us to be better. So we just forgave them?" The girl asked, confused. "No," Grace replied. "Forgiveness is personal. Some survivors forgave the Vorath. Many did not. That choice belongs to each individual. What we did as a species was different. We chose to stop the cycle of killing. We chose to show that humans could be strong without being cruel. We chose to build a future where our children and their children could live in peace. The girl thought about this for a long moment. "I think I understand," she said finally. "We remembered the wound, but we did not let it make us sick." Grace smiled. "That is exactly right." As the sun set over New Eden, casting long shadows across the memorial, Helen and Nathan sat on a bench overlooking the gardens. They had spent the entire day greeting visitors and sharing memories. Now they simply watched the peaceful scene before them. A Varath father was teaching his young daughter how to read the names on the memorial wall. A human mother helped a Varath elder navigate the garden paths. Children of both species chased each other through the flowers, laughing and shouting in a mix of languages. "Do you think it will last?" Nathan asked. "This peace we built?" Helen considered the question. "Nothing lasts forever," she admitted. "Someday there may be new conflicts, new misunderstandings, new leaders who forget the lessons of the past. But that is why we built the memorials. That is why we tell the stories. That is why we never stop teaching." She looked at the wall of names, thinking of her own sons whose names were carved there. "Humanity never forgets a wound," she said quietly. The Varath learned that truth the hard way. But they also learned something more important. They learned that humans know how to heal. We remember our pain, but we do not let it consume us. We carry our grief, but we do not let it become hatred. We seek justice, but we do not let it become cruelty. Nathan nodded slowly. "That is our real strength," he agreed. "Not our ships or our weapons, but our ability to keep building even after we've been broken." The stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere among them, the Varath homeworld continued its slow transformation. Somewhere else, new human colonies were growing on distant planets. And everywhere, the story of New Eden was being told and retold. A reminder of what hatred could destroy and what wisdom could rebuild. Helen stood slowly, ready to return to her quarters. "The galaxy will remember us," she said. "Not as conquerors or destroyers. Not as the species that could break civilizations. They will remember us as the species that knew when to stop. That is the legacy worth leaving." Nathan rose to join her. Together, they walked away from the memorial as night fell over New Eden. Behind them, the names of 12 million people glittered in the starlight. Never forgotten, forever honored, eternally at peace. The wound had healed, but humanity would always remember.